Alanna has started her classes and is about to learn how hard she'll have to work if she really wants to be a knight. The next class was in deportment, or manners, as they were practiced by nobles. Alanna had learned very early to say please and thank you, but she quickly realized that these were only the rudiments of deportment. She did not know how to bow. She did not know how to address a lord as opposed to an earl. She did not know which of 3 spoons to use first at a banquet. She could not dance, and she could not play a musical instrument. The master gave her a very large tome of etiquette to read and ordered her to start lap harp studies immediately, in her free time. "But I have to read the first chapter of this tonight in my free time," she told Gary and Alex, thumping the book of etiquette. They were sitting on a bench during their morning break, all 10 minutes of it, and 4 problems in mathematics and the rest of that stupid poem. "Ah," Gary said dreamily, "free time. I've heard about that. Don't fool yourself, Firetop. What with extra hours of lessons for punishments and the work you get every day, free time is an illusion. It's what you get when you die and the gods reward you for a life spent working from dawn until midnight. We all face up to it sooner or later. The only real free time you get is when my honored sire chooses to give you, when he thinks you have earned it." "And he doesn't give it to you at night," Alex put in. "He gives it to you when you've been here a while, on market day, and sometimes a morning or afternoon all to yourself, but never at night. At night you study. During the day you study, in your sleep." The bell rang. "I could learn to hate that bell," Alanna muttered, as she gathered up her things. The older 2 boys laughed and hurried her along to the next class. To her surprise, this one was different. The boys sat upright in their chairs, looking as if they were interested in what was about to happen. The walls were hung with maps and charts. A board with several large blank sheets of paper fixed to it stood before the chairs. A box containing sticks of charcoal for drawing on the paper sat on the table beside it. The teacher entered to friendly greetings. This man was not a priest. He was short and plump, with long brown hair streaked with gray, and a long shaggy beard. His hose bagged at the knees, his tunic was as rumpled as if he had slept in it. He had a tiny, delicate nose and a smiling mouth. Alanna met the man's large green-brown eyes and smiled in spite of herself. He was the oddest mixture of disarray and good nature she had ever encountered, and she liked him on sight. His name was Sir Miles of Olau. "Hello," he greeted her cheerfully. "You must be Alan of Trebond. You're very hearty to have made it this far the first day. Has anyone said what we try to learn in here?" Alanna said the first thing that came to her lips. "The only thing I know is that I jump when I'm told to, and I have no free time." The boys chuckled, and Miles grinned. Alanna blushed. "I'm sorry," she muttered. "I wasn't trying to be pert." "It's all right," Miles reassured her. "Your life here is going to be difficult. Our code of chivalry makes harsh demands." "Sir Miles, are you going to start on the code again?" Jonathan asked. "You know we never agree that it asks too much from us." "No, I'm not going to start on the code today," Miles replied. "For one thing, you boys won't agree with me until the glamour of being knights and nobles has worn off, and you can see the toll our way of life has taken on you. And for another, Duke Gareth has given me to understand that we are somewhat deficient in our coverage of the Bazier Wars, and that he hopes to find us more knowledgeable when next he stops to visit." "Sir?" someone asked. Miles looked at Alanna with a twinkle in his eyes. "I often forget not everyone is a scholar like me. I tend to use obscure language. Therefore, to translate, Duke Gareth wants me to go over the Bazier Wars because he thinks I spent too much time on arguing the code of chivalry and not enough time on the history of Tortal and the history of warfare, which is what I'm supposed to teach you." Alanna left the class thinking, something she seldom did seriously. "Why the frown?" Gary asked, catching up to her. "Don't you like Miles? I do." Alanna blinked at him. "Oh, no, I liked him a lot. He just seems odd," Alex said dryly. He and Gary seemed to be close friends. "The word you want is odd." "Alex and Miles are always arguing about right and wrong," Gary explained. "Actually, he seems very wise," Alanna said hesitantly. "Not that I know many wise people, but—" "He's also the court drunk," Alex pointed out. "Come on, before lunch is over and we haven't eaten." After lunch came an hour of philosophy. Alanna almost nodded off to sleep as the teaching priest droned on about duty. At last Gary took her outside, down to the acres of practice courts and exercise yards behind the palace. Here was the center of training for knighthood. Alanna would spend her afternoons and part of her evenings here, going inside only when it actually rained or snowed, and sometimes not even then. Here she must learn jousting, fighting with weapons such as maces, axes, and staffs, archery while standing and while riding, normal riding, and trick riding. She must learn to fall, roll, tumble. She would get dirty, tear muscles, bruise herself, break bones. If she was stood at all, if she was stubborn enough and strong enough, she would someday carry a knight's shield with pride. Training was endless. Even once a knight had his shield, or her shield, he still worked out in the yards. To get out of shape was to ask for death at the hands of a stranger on a lonely road. As the daughter of a border lord, Alanna knew exactly how important the fighting arts were. Every year, Trebond fought off bandits. Occasionally, Scanra to the north tried to invade through the Grimhold Mountains, and Trebond was Tortal's first line of defense. Alanna could already use a bow and a dagger. She was a skilled tracker and a decent rider, but she quickly learned that the men who taught the pages and squires considered her to be a raw beginner. She was a raw beginner. Her afternoon began with an hour of push-ups, sit-ups, jumps, and twisting exercises. A knight had to be limber to turn and weave quickly. For the next hour, she wore a suit of padded cloth armor, as she received her first lessons with a staff. Before she could learn to use a sword, she had to show some mastery of staff fighting. Without the heavy padding, she would have broken something that first afternoon. As it was, she learned to stop a blow aimed at her side, and she felt as if she had been kicked by a horse. Next, she learned the basic movement in hand fighting, the fall. She fell, trying to slap the ground as she hit, trying to take her weight on all the right places, and creating new bruises whenever she missed or forgot. The next hour saw her placing a shield on a bruised and aching left arm. She was paired off with a boy with a stout wooden stick. The purpose of this exercise was to teach her how to use the shield as a defense. If she succeeded, she stopped the oncoming blow. If she didn't, her opponent landed a smarting rap on the part of her she had left exposed. After a while, they traded off, and she wielded the stick while her partner headed off her attack. This didn't make her feel any better, since she was new to the use of the stick. Her opponent caught every strike she tried. Feeling cheated, Alanna followed Gary to the next yard. Archery was a little better, but only a little. Because she already knew something about archery, she was permitted to actually string the bow and shoot it. When the master discovered she had a good eye and better aim, he made her work on the way she stood and the way she held her bow. For an hour. The last hour of her day's studies was spent on horseback. Since Alanna had only Chubby to ride, she was assigned one of the many extra horses kept in the royal stables for some of her riding. Her first lesson was in sitting properly, trotting the horse in a circle, bringing him to a gallop, galloping without falling off, and halting the horse precisely in front of the master. Because her horse was too large for her and had a hard mouth, Alanna fell off 3 times. The beast was impossible for her to control, and when she told the riding master as much, she found herself ordered to report for extra study 3 nights a week after the evening meal.